Stacking up my money, no time for your shit. Money kulapo, I don't care for your hate. Me no fighting, me no fighting. Throwing tantrums from bungalow out there. I did my penthouse, you can't even reach me. Me no frightened. It is not your fight, stand down. I'm not the one, calm down. You know I'm not your problem. You can't be me, why bother? Don't have your time now. Only mumi bow down. To bambino farabale. Oboya ko lari mole.
chako ni Jeni Nyamalo Achieng' Nyarahero Nyando. Nyar Kobura unyuolo nyako Achieng' nyako dongo Obera. Nyiri wuoda tiyo geng'na nono Achieng' nyako dongo Obera. Nyar giwegi lake okwe wawachogo kisungu lilo.
Yesu siemna rauri gweng dhano go rauri otkara go wende mo rauri to kelo chungu drao. Wach manade ni ao.
Jeni Achieng' Nyarahero Nyando. Jeni Achieng' Nyarahero Nyando. Baby Ikowa nyaka ne wachopo kunya. Baby Ikowa nyaka ne wachopo kunya. Waparo woino mila kianda. Waparo woino mila kianda. December Christmas moro nyochi orona. December Christmas moro nyochi orona. Ochama boro, ati tochamani. Ochama boro, ochamani. Ochama boro, ati tochamani. Ochama boro, ayeba guru, yeba chama boro. Ayeba guru, yeba chama boro. Ayeba guru, yeba chama boro. nyathini porite.
Thank you, Asante Nisana, for that break, that entertainment break. And I'm sure you all had a good time stretching your legs. I'm told the tea was for the morning, so it was just a quick health break. So moving on, allow me to move us to the next session, where I want to ask Elizabeth Auma to please come and make her presentation on the priority agenda for women's economic empowerment. We have been having discussions, and I think some of you have been part of this discussion on what exactly are the priority agenda for women. What is it that we would want to focus on at a first point for women's economic empowerment? So, Elizabeth, please, are you ready? Okay. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Oh, so do I say good afternoon? Yes. Good afternoon, ladies. Good afternoon. How are you? How has it been? Have you enjoyed yourself? So far? So far, so good, and it's only getting better. Can we say that?
So far, so good, and it's only getting better.
So far, so good, and it is only getting better. Priority agenda. But before I go into the priority agenda, when I was listening to the women whose shoulders we stand today, there were things they talked about. And Lady Gatabaki, and they talked about, they asked, why have we taken so long to push this movement for women's economic empowerment? Do you remember the question? Why have we taken this long? And I was seated there wondering, sure, that's a valid question. And then Lady Gatabaki said, we take love too seriously. Do you remember that? That this is a generation that takes love too seriously, and yet love does not come as food at the table. And so I think women took the gains in the Constitution too seriously, and they forgot that rights must be exercised. If you do not exercise the rights, they remain just rights. So the women have taken too long to realize that things like affirmative action funds are just that. They are just funds. We must move to take hold of those funds. We must grab them. We must go into the spaces where they are provided, and we must showcase our ability to utilize them. And so, after the WeHub has conducted some research, we are here to share certain proposals we are making moving forward to see how we translate that information into action. Okay, we have a medical gadget, an inhaler that probably belongs to one of us. If it is yours, please get it from Daisy in case you run into the risk of a crisis. So I want to share with us a few ideas about what the WeHub is proposing. But before that, there is a background to this. And what background are we talking about? Globally, we have Sustainable Development Goals. And Goal 5, more specifically, is focused on women equal opportunities for women and empowerment for women and girls. And that means non-discrimination. We are also looking at some research that has been done, and Kenya was ranked position 109 out of 153. So you can imagine where we are in terms of the gender gap targets. So Kenya is still somewhere behind, and 137 out of 189 countries, according to the UNDP Gender Equality Index. Still, economic participation, the reason why we are here. In economic participation and opportunities, we realize that the current research, the World Economic Forum 2021, shows that those are the two largest areas of gender gap: economic opportunity or economic participation and opportunities for women. And then, still, women experience higher proportions of multi-dimensional poverty. What does it mean? In all areas of poverty, women are there. And they are deprived and they lag behind in access to finance. These are things done by Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. And then still, women are underrepresented in wage employment, their information communication sector, in insurance, and I'm very sure women in business, some of them don't even know about insuring, even taking a medical insurance for their SME workers, manufacturing, administration, support services. In all these areas of technical, of the STEMs, women are still behind. And so we are calling on all stakeholders to move efforts towards ensuring that women occupy these spaces where they are still underrepresented. So what is the WeHub, or what has the WeHub done? You've had this, but I'll just go over it quickly. Access to government procurement opportunities. Women have to access these things. So the WeHub has done research on that. Social protection and women's economic empowerment. Specifically, we focused on Kazi Mtaani and Inua Jamii. We also looked at the national government affirmative action funds, the whole of them. And then we look at the credit guarantee scheme as a separate, although it is part of the affirmative action program, childcare and women's work, women and labor laws, and so what is the aim, or what are the aims and the objectives of this priority agenda that we're proposing today? We are looking at fostering sustainable national framework that brings together women entrepreneurs, women organizations, women leaders, partners at both county and national level. And why are we bringing them together? We want them to share, we want them to learn, and we want them to engage in policy advocacy. We are also looking at creating spaces. Like, there was so much talk about this space, this space, this space. So we are looking at creating spaces for women entrepreneurs and networks of women entrepreneurs to dialogue with policy makers. And also financial institutions, you saw the banks here yesterday, and other stakeholders who are focused on women's economic empowerment. And also we are looking at building consensus and ownership of the women's economic empowerment agenda for this country. Because if you don't own it, then there is nowhere we are going. So the women must own this process. And what are the objectives? We are looking at a legal framework on AGPO to ensure that vulnerable groups enjoy quality value. You will see from my presentation that women are still on those low-level kind of procurement opportunities. They have not moved to where it matters. They have not moved to the, somebody was talking about yesterday, the expressway. They have not moved to the construction. They are still there at the grass-cutting sector. We are looking at expansion of the Kenya government economic stimulus packages to focus on social protection safety nets that are more responsive to women's economic agenda. We are not saying the government is doing nothing. We are saying the government has done something, but we can push it forward. We want to elevate what the government has done to tap into women's economic opportunities. We are looking at a comprehensive specific legislation that supports the allocation of more resources to women enterprises. And we're also looking at implementation of the provisions of Article 43 of the Constitution through increased budgetary allocation to sectors that affect care economy to reduce the burden that women have on care work, because women are overburdened in care work. And then we are also looking at the review of the national and county legislative frameworks and policies for women's employment rights and greater participation of women in the informal and formal employment sector. We are looking at a situation where we want to see women's employment rights, and we analyze the employment law in this country, and women are still not catered for, even though the law is there. So what do we need to do about it? We are also looking at increased budgetary allocation or resource allocation to the sectors that affect childcare and women's work at national and county level. We've seen women talk about how at the border in Busia, just child facilities changed the game for them. They were no longer carrying children on their backs. So we want this thing moved from the research we are doing to action in the streets, to action in women's households. So those are the objectives. And then this is just the preparatory process. What did we do? We reviewed all the findings from the WeHub and partners. Not just WeHub, we also had partners, UN Women, Crown Trust, and other government institutions. So we reviewed what they have been doing. And then after reviewing, we prioritize. That is why we are presenting to you the priority agenda. We prioritize out of all this information, what do you want the women to move with immediately and in the long term? And then there was a consultative process, and we are still continuing today with the consultative process. So what agenda do we have? What agenda do we have for women? Based on the research that has been highlighted here before, one, we want women's participation in the economy and in leadership positions. Women, we've just clapped at the fact that Madam Kaiseri has enabled Maasai women to become chiefs. And I was just talking to a friend during the tea break. To anybody looking at those statistics, it's just they imagine it is the 2/3 gender rule being implemented. They imagine that the government has employed women chiefs. And I'm very sure the Ministry of Interior will be very happy presenting statistics that in Maasai land we have women coming in as chiefs. But we know that without Mrs. Kaiseri taking hold of the 2/3 gender rule behind her and moving forward to mobilize women, train them, and encourage them, they wouldn't have been chiefs. This is what we are talking about. So we want women to be in more positions of leadership, influential positions of leadership, and we want women to participate in the economy. And so just a highlight of the key findings that women are still deprived socioeconomically, and their participation is still very limited, yet they are over 50% of our population. We are saying, how can the world leave a population segment that is so important to every sector of their lives behind in economic participation? But it is here, it is glaring, it is global, and so we want to make a difference for our own country. We also know that women experience higher, I've already said that initially, higher proportions of multidimensional poverty in areas of education, socioeconomic participation, information, nutrition, water, sanitation, housing, name it, we are still behind. We are also looking at feminized sector participation. We find women more in the retail, hospitality, in the food industry, low-income areas, low economic factor areas. Women are not going up there. Women are not becoming billionaires. Why are women not becoming the billionaires? So that is a feminized sectoral participation.